Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a geographic mystery that literally defies modern human engineering. We live in this incredibly connected era, right? A time where we just assume we can travel pretty much anywhere with enough pavement and a GPS. But what if I told you there's a place on this planet where that whole idea completely falls apart? A place where the sheer force of nature has drawn a giant line in the mud and stopped our modern infrastructure dead in its tracks.
Okay, let's dive into this. Did you know it's physically impossible to drive from North to South America? Seriously, think about that for a second. We've got bridges that span massive bodies of water. We've got tunnels carved right through the base of giant mountain ranges. And yet, linking these two huge, continuous continents with a simple road, it just cannot be done. If you get in your car at the very top of North America and try to drive all the way down to the southern tip of South America, your journey is going to hit an absolute impenetrable wall.
Section 1. The Broken Highway. We're going to take a structured look at exactly why global infrastructure completely failed here.
To really understand why you can't make that drive, we have to look at the grandest attempt to make it happen, and why it ultimately fell flat. On one side, you have the Pan-American Highway. This is famously known as the longest road in the entire world. It's a sprawling network of highways designed to seamlessly link the nations of the Americas, facilitating travel, trade, and connecting the top of the globe all the way down to the bottom. It's basically a monument to human ambition. But then, standing right in its way, we have the Darien Gap, the impassable blockade. This specific piece of land stands as one of the most dangerous places on the planet. It is the ultimate roadblock.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the Darien Gap literally breaks even the longest road in the world. The grand vision of the Pan American Highway project, it completely failed in this specific section. All the funding, all the incredible engineering prowess, all the heavy machinery, none of it could overcome the realities of this environment. Nature simply flat out refused to yield the asphalt and concrete.
Section 2. 160 kilometers of jungle. Let's look at the actual geographical culprit behind this broken highway.
So what exactly are we dealing with here? 160. That's the magic number. There are exactly 160 kilometers of completely impassable terrain separating the continuous road networks of these two continents. Now, 160 kilometers, or roughly 100 miles, might not sound like a huge distance when you're cruising down a paved interstate, right? You'd cover that in just over an hour. But when we're talking about the Darien Gap, this number represents a dense, impenetrable fortress of nature. Every single kilometer is just a brutal battle.
This 160-kilometer stretch is located squarely on the border of Panama and Colombia. It's the exact geographical choke point between Central America and South America. It's the literal land bridge connecting the continents, and yet it functions way more like a locked door.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly why the highway failed. We can systematically list these extreme environmental factors. First off, we aren't just dealing with a few trees. We are talking about dense tropical forests that completely block out the sun and are incredibly difficult to clear. Then you have the ground itself, treacherous swamps that'll swallow machinery whole, combined with jagged, just really difficult mountains. And if that wasn't enough, add a relentlessly humid climate and constant heavy rain. The earth there is always shifting, washing away, and overgrowing anything you try to put down. It is literally a perfect storm of geographical defiance.
So, the conclusion here is pretty stark. Because of that difficult terrain, the humid climate, and the constant rain, building a road is almost impossible and extremely expensive. It isn't just about laying down pavement once. It's about the completely impossible cost of maintaining it against an environment that's actively trying to destroy it every single day. That's the fundamental reason why infrastructure cannot physically survive here and why the gap remains a gap today.
Section 3. A dangerous migrant route. Now we shift from a geographical quirk to the grim human reality of what happens inside the gap today.
You see, the story of the Darien Gap doesn't end with a halted construction project. Because while cars and trucks can't cross this terrain, human beings are actually attempting it every single day. Despite being one of the most dangerous places on Earth, the Darien Gap is the only land route for migrants moving northward. People who are in search of a better life, seeking safety or opportunity, they're often forced to use these impassable jungles as their only path. They really don't have the luxury of avoiding it. So this geographical anomaly becomes a desperate, unavoidable bottleneck for human migration. Let's move to and see how this builds into a truly terrifying reality for those making the journey. The danger escalates layer by layer. Step 1 is the natural environment. We already talked about the difficult terrain, but migrants also have to navigate the local wildlife on foot.
It is physically exhausting and incredibly perilous. Step 2. The lack of government control. Because the area is so remote and impassable, authorities just cannot effectively patrol or govern it. And that lawless vacuum leads directly to Step 3, the human threat. The Gap is home to criminals, smugglers, and armed gangs who take advantage of the isolation and the vulnerable people passing through.
So the crucial point is that navigating the Darien Gap is not just a battle against the mud and the rain, it's a serious risk to human life and freedom. The presence of these armed groups and smugglers means there is a significantly increased risk of kidnapping for anyone attempting to traverse this area. An attempt to cross this 160-kilometer section can be deadly, and tragically, not all the migrants who enter this dense jungle actually reach their destination.
We started this explainer by looking at a planned engineering marvel that was ultimately defeated by a stretch of jungle. We looked at the swamps, the rain, and the impossible cost of building a road. But as we've seen, the true cost of the Darien Gap isn't measured in asphalt or construction budgets. When nature breaks the longest road on Earth, what is the true cost for those forced to cross it on foot?